Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of A Friend for the Long Haul. Today, I'm here with Olivia Belknap. Olivia, thank you for joining me. I started following you, I think, early to mid last year.
Mhm.
Your posts are just so, they hit me every time. And then you started offering, I think you started offering support groups,
Mhm.
meetups, and things like that, which I'm all about community and getting to know each other and leaning on each other. So, everyone keeps laughing at me because I say that I'm actually pretty shy, and it takes me a while to work up to asking people to join me on here.
Mhm.
Just because I can talk a lot doesn't mean that I am inclined to ask everyone I think is cool. But I really appreciate you taking the time and the spoons to chat with me today. And I will admit to everyone I was late and screwed up, and Olivia's still here and very kind. So thank you for understanding. But can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, and first of all, just thanks for having me. I think you had reached out to me like a year and a half ago, and it was in my not yet friends messages, and so I didn't see it for 3 months, and I felt so bad. I was like, no, I want to come on the podcast. But yeah, anyway, to introduce myself, I'm Olivia Belknap. I'm an associate marriage and family therapist in California. I'm working under the supervision of Lisa Gray. I'm so close to getting my license. I'm really hoping within the next 2 months. I'm just waiting on the BBS to approve my paperwork.
That's awesome.
I'm in private practice. I graduated from CSUN with my in marriage and family therapy in the end of 2023. And I've been working virtually since then, mostly neurodivergent folks, COVID conscious folks, chronically ill, queer folks, kind of my main, mostly individuals. I do a lot of groups. I've
Yeah.
pared down my groups a little bit. But yeah, like you had mentioned, my pandemic processing groups for
Yeah.
folks that not everyone has long COVID. There tends to be a lot of folks that do, which makes sense. They're continuing to take precautions and mitigate, but just a lot of community and support around the difficulties of continuing to mask and take precautions can have on us as people and our relationships. And
Yeah.
before we started recording, you were talking about identity. This has a huge impact on our identities. And I think going into what is it, year 6, year 7, or whatever at this point of the pandemic, a lot of our identities have shifted in such a big way. I think before the pandemic started, I thought I was a straight, neurotypical, healthy, able-bodied person. And now I am queer, neurodivergent, dynamically disabled, chronically ill baddie. So
welcome to the club, my friend. Welcome to the club. There were things I knew and things that I suspected, but for the listeners, doing internal family systems, I have met recently my data analyst part, and they're a combination of Lucy and Pigpen from Snoopy, and they need to see the diagnosis on paper before I can understand what's wrong with me. And it's funny because I know I'm neurodivergent. I knew I was that girl. But it took seeing someone write it down for me to be like, I should probably treat myself kindly and try to understand how I fit this in now.
Yeah. I also do autism assessments for adults. And that's something I hear so commonly. They're like, I'm 99% sure. And I've looked and I've done all the research for months or years. And yet I really feel like I just need someone else who's not me to kind of give me that confirmation. That's so many of the people I see. So I totally hear that.
That's so tracks though, just not trusting ourselves.
Yeah. Well, I think we've kind of been told not to trust ourselves and to not trust our own experience for our whole lives, I think most of us.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think coming back to identity, what I tell everybody from my perspective is I've been living for half a decade or more in a body that has gone too hard to keep me alive.
Yeah.
And reacted so violently in an attempt to keep me here. My brain can rationalize that, but my inner self just feels threatened all the time. And it's really hard to think, hey, I'm going to pay attention to what you're telling me when it just feels like a giant threat all the time.
Absolutely. I think most of us have probably been in that fight or flight mode for most of our lives for one reason or another. And this is kind of just added to that.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, who am I outside of this when so much of my mental space is taken up of just how do I function and how do I get through a single day when my body feels like it is betraying me time after time.
Yes.
And it's its own form of complex trauma. And I think that a lot of us probably came into this already with complex trauma of like relational trauma, the trauma of living in this capitalist society that's not to support any of us, basically. You know, when we think about trauma like this, the pandemic, it's not like a single incident trauma of like there was a big, a natural disaster or an assault or a car accident or whatever. Like this is this ongoing trauma of that. And then the added layer of the fact that probably most people in our lives are acting as though this is not happening or have moved on from it. And so there's like a relational trauma that's going on as well that can be so dysregulating. And for a lot of folks in my groups or clients, share with me of like, I feel like I'm constantly questioning myself. Like, am I crazy? Am I making this up? Everyone else seems to be on this different page. What does that mean? I'm the odd one out. That's distressing to live that
it is
for years and years.
Because I look at these folks and I think, how do you say you love me? And you've watched me go through all of this and you're just like, couldn't be me. Sorry for you.
Absolutely.
It's wild.
That's come up in my group so many times of like, how do I hold these two things that feel so conflicting of someone saying that they love and care about me? And yet when I say, hey, can you like take some of these steps to protect me? They're like, I don't want to do that.
Just really hard. And someone might look at me weird.
Yeah. And I think it feels like such a deep rejection, which is hard when so many of us are already used to being rejected. Maybe you have like, RSD, like rejection sensitive dysphoria, which is so common with ADHD and all that stuff.
The worst.
Yeah.
I have it really bad. I do.
And so this is just another major rejection that we're facing. And this is not a perceived rejection. It's not like, someone came at me with something neutral and my brain spun it to mean that they hate me. This is like people being like, no, I'm not willing to do this for you. No, I don't want to take steps for you to be included. They might say, oh, we'd love for you to come, but what are you doing to make this event accessible for me? And when I ask, hey, can you do XYZ things? They're like, we're not comfortable with that. It's hard not to take that as a rejection.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to go back to something though. And if you don't mind,
sure.
I'd like to ask, when you got sick, when did you get sick within all of this? Because if you've been doing all of this studying and working on your license and going through learning all of these things about yourself on top of surviving, like that's a lot, friend.
It is a lot. And I think I tend to, my partner will laugh when he hears this, because we were just talking about this yesterday. I tend to kind of diminish and dismiss. I'm like, I don't really do that much. And then people are like, Livy, look at all these things that you've done. So my kind of experience with this, I started my graduate program in fall of 2021. And I had my first and only known COVID infection in April of 2022.
Gotcha.
So it was my first year of my program. It was this interesting thing where my first semester was totally remote because it was, quote unquote, still the pandemic. Obviously, the pandemic is ongoing, but it was still when people thought it was like important enough to care or try or do something or whatever. And it was then the next semester, it was January, whatever, 2022. We were like hybrid. It was like 1 week in person, 1 week online. And it was still masks required. Most people were wearing cloth masks and all that stuff. I think I was too at that point still, because I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
And then I got COVID, and I think I just got interested. I was like, oh, like, I remember being so mad. I was like, I went 2.5 years without getting this, and what the heck?
That's a good run.
And so I kind of just like went into the research a little bit, because I was curious, like, what does this mean for me? I had seen, kind of some news articles. I remember being like in 2020 seeing some COVID will do this and that to your brain or your heart or whatever. And I was like, ooh, that sounds scary. Hope that's not true.
Yeah.
And so I kind of went into the research, and I was shocked, because I was like, wait, we know so much more about this than I realized. This is so much worse than I would have thought. And nobody seems to know. And I was, I'd gotten the message from, I was 22. I just turned 22 like the week before. And so I'd been getting this message of like, well, you're young and healthy. You'll be fine. You get, it'll be mild for you. And I was like, okay. And then that wasn't and it was a quote unquote mild infection. I wasn't hospitalized. I probably, was testing positive or testing negative rather, after a week and a half or so.
Yeah.
But I just felt like my body never really was the same. And it started to get progressively worse, like months and months later.
Yeah.
It was just such a surreal experience to then the next semester have them remove the mask requirement and to see immediately 90% of people just stopped. And it was still me and a couple of other peers for a little while until the end, at least there were multiple cohorts that I only have classes with some people. So at least in my subset, by the end, it was just me and my one other friend that were still masking.
Oh, man.
And we're reading Disability Visibility by Alice Wong in our in our classes and, talking about these sort of things. And I was just like, there is such a disconnect happening here. And so when I graduated, it was even before I graduated that with my friend from school, Erin Vitale, that we had made, it was still 2023 about at that point, what therapists need to know about COVID in 2023.
I remember that, I think.
Yeah, our presentation that we've made, and we've done many versions of it since then. We're actually working on another version. It's going to have a different title that we're doing through the Chicago School of Psychology next month.
Oh, awesome.
About working with brain fog, chronic illness and therapy and things like that. And when I graduated, I really just saw such a need because at that point, I was on disability Twitter. I identified as having long COVID. I'd upgraded my masks to the N95s. I wasn't doing the cloth masks anymore. I was all there with all of that. And I was really like, there are so many people who I'm seeing over and over again. They're like, I shared my concerns with my therapist and they told me, that I must have OCD or that I just need to get back to normal. Just go out there and go to a restaurant and you'll feel better. And I was like, no, this is not sitting right with me. And so I didn't even try to I don't know, I wasn't trying to become like the COVID conscious therapist person or whatever, but I was like, hey, this is an experience that I relate to and I know about. And I feel like there's so many people who need support, but who are currently don't feel comfortable seeking it, or when they've tried, they've been shut down or pathologized, and that's not okay.
No.
And so that's kind of what started a lot of the work that I've done. And when I made my Olivia Belknap therapy Instagram and started making all my graphics and stuff like that was really because I was like, there is a large subset of people who needs visibility and needs support. And there's just not a lot around that. I feel so grateful that in the last few years, there have been so many more people like you and other people who are making a platform and talking about these issues and really bringing it to light because I think it's so important. But yeah, I feel like that was a really long-winded way of this is experience and how I got into it. And I've gotten other diagnoses since then. I almost feel weird about identifying with long COVID now because I feel like people have this idea in their mind of what it means. Or they picture someone who is bedbound or has severe ME/CFS. And I don't have that experience. I was housebound for 3 months last year. I have a lot of different medical issues that I'm still trying to figure out. But I feel like because I'm like, okay, well, I have this autoimmune diagnosis that I got after COVID. I have the POTS diagnosis that I got after COVID. I think I've had POTS since I was a kid, to be honest.
I have.
Yeah. But it wasn't clocked. It was probably just written off as anxiety when I'm like, hey, I wake up every morning and I feel like I'm going to throw up and my vision is blurry and I have to sit down to brush my teeth. They're like, it's not a morning person.
Oh. Yeah. Well, first of all, that's a lot of labor and a lot of work and a lot of spoons. So thank you for doing it. I think it's really important to show all the different ways it affects us. It goes back to that, how dynamic it is. So I appreciate you saying it because it helps people understand that old line that they say about autism as well is you meet one person with it, you've met one person with it. And I can be doing great until 11 o'clock on a Tuesday, and then I'm wiped out. And then I could bounce back for a few hours later in the day. I don't know what each day is going to bring. And I have such a really wild, varied list of things that happened as a result of it. I think largely because I got it so early. I was April 1st, 2020.
Yeah.
So there was nothing to try for me until, spring 2022. I started something. And I didn't really start anything that helped until that November, and that was LDN.
Yeah.
So that's a long time to have like a raging cytokine storm, basically.
Yeah.
That wasn't bad enough to do me in completely, but bad enough to hurt me pretty bad. And it just, the interesting thing about starting a platform was I didn't plan to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And having conversations about community and how we all got together, what I've kind of come to understand is I don't think a lot of us came to social media with this trying to build a community or a platform or anything. It was validation and what the hell do I do? Because my skin's falling off.
Yeah.
And anybody else, I don't know how to deal with this. And especially in the early days, it was kind of the Wild West. Like we just were all like, I have no idea what's going on. I just know I was supposed to be better after 10 days. And I was testing positive from April to June 10th.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And never got a fever.
Yeah.
Which says a lot about dysautonomia, I think. But anyway, I really do think, and I run a support group from Austin where I lived before, and it is mostly people coming in to say, do you have a doctor? Do you know anything about this? And then people start to talk and have similar experiences. And if you've had a weird experience, it's so nice to hear somebody else say, yeah, that happened to me too. You're not making it up.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm not making it up. And I do still question sometimes whether, am I just lazy? Am I just, the internalized ableism is so strong.
Absolutely.
So strong.
Yeah. We have all these ideas of what we quote unquote should be able to do. And it's so hard to pull away from that. And going back to identity as well, like I feel like being so unwell for so many months and not being able to do a lot of the things that I couldn't stand long enough to fold a load of laundry. Like, you know, and so then having to, and I'm so incredibly lucky to have my able-bodied partner who is able to do stuff, and he has the type of ADHD that means he like does 1,000 things every day, and he's always ready to go. But even that was really hard because I feel like as a woman and as a young woman, like I was really taught this narrative of like, don't rely on a man. You need to be self-sufficient. You don't want to end up like your grandma who like, you know, was never able to work and she couldn't do anything for herself. And so to be able to try and let go and be like, my partner is going to do all of these things for me.
Yeah.
Was extremely hard for me because I felt like, but I'm not contributing and I need to be doing more. And what does this say about me or whatever? What it says about me was that I was sick. My body was not working right. It was not a moral failing of mine. But I think too, especially maybe as women, of feeling like we have to be the helpers and we have to be the one who's caretaking everyone else and multiple steps ahead of, you know, making sure everyone's happy and comfortable.
Yeah.
It's hard to let go of that and to just be like, okay, someone else is taking care of me now.
Yeah, it really is, because my husband is pretty much full-time caretaker for his 2 sons from his first marriage. And then I have a daughter from my first marriage. And then we have a son together. And I've said this before, but I really thought that my husband was scamming me at first because that was an emotional intelligence that I was not used to. And I was like, this can't be real. But I have been incredibly fortunate because I have had that support and care and empathy. And I have so many friends whose relationships have ended because that just was not part of the dynamic. And interestingly, those have been generally married, not interestingly, but it's not interesting. It's a sad truth. Those were relationships with cisgendered men, white men, who were very much being emotionally regulated by the partner who got sick.
Yeah.
And when the partner was no longer able to be that emotional regulator for those cis white men, then the relationships were like starting to change because I'm uncomfortable and I don't know. And you signed up for in sickness and in health, and someone's physicality changed and their showing a picture of this is what she looked like before to their friends. Like, no, this is a horrible, horrible thing from you, sir. And talk about identity and loss and grief, like just layer after layer. I call it the stinky onion. It's just, I stole that from Shrek, but it's true. There's just so many layers of the ways that this impacts us. And if you already came into it with PTSD or c-ptsd and a dysregulated nervous system and childhood trauma around, like you said, relationships, it's just like, how have you been able to kind of pay attention to those things about yourself and become so comfortable with yourself? You seem very comfortable with yourself, and I'm envious.
Oh, I mean,
in a way that is like aspiration, like goals. Give me. I want to feel
that is so
settled.
Sweet of you to say that. And also, I feel like I need you to know that I cried yesterday because I was like, I'm not good enough and I'm ugly now and I have all these things. And like,
that's the full gamut of the human experience. I think we all do that. But I think what I'm looking for myself with the work that I'm doing around this trauma is more of an ease with myself and the ability to give myself the same respect that I give my friends in this. Because I have been taught that I'm not deserving of that. I have to keep producing and I have to be and go and be capable.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
I mean, in full transparency, I'm still navigating those same things. And that's something that I feel like I'm still constantly in process and it's always changing. And like,
maybe it never ends.
Maybe it never ends. You know what? I think you're right. I think it never ends. And as our context shifts, we have to shift with it, which can be hard, especially for me with my autistic brain, likes things to be the same, which is a whole other thing. But it's so hard when I feel like I've been in this like boom and bust burnout cycle, like for my whole life of like, the big deadlines are coming up, like, you know, because I went to college and then I went right to grad school. So I was like, okay, well, I have all the projects and all the papers and I got to do everything. And then now it's the week and a half or 2 week break and I'm exhausted and I'm depressed and I feel like crap. And then I get kind of just back enough to baseline to start over and do it again.
Yeah.
But I like never get to fully recover. And even at the height of when I was the most sick last year, I was still working just as much as I had been before. And I look back at my hours and I'm like, how did I do that? I really don't know.
I was going to ask you how you did that because I said that to you. During the year I wasn't eating, I went through a project management certification program and got my, why?
I see 20 clients a week and eating like one meal a day. There was a whole month last year where I did all of my sessions from my couch because my POTS was so bad that I couldn't even sit up in my chair. The chair you see now is my upgrade chair that has the headrest and the footrest. But it really just felt like, well, this is what I do. I just push through regardless. Yeah. And I'm trying so hard to like scale back a little bit. I'm working like 25% less now than I was this time last year. And I'm like, that's great. And it's not enough. I need to scale it back even more.
Yeah. But that's so hard on this timeline.
Yeah. It's always a moving target. And it's hard, like as a therapist, like a big part of my job is sitting with people. And like you mentioned earlier of like, you know, these women are helping to regulate their husbands. Yeah. That's a big part of my job is to help regulate other people's nervous systems.
That is a question I was going to ask you in a minute. Please carry on. Sorry.
And so I feel like, when I was really unwell, I would give everything I had to be able to show up for people and hold space for them and then collapse. Like I would sleep in between sessions. I really don't know how I did it, to be honest. And then there's a part of me that's like, I'm such a fucking hypocrite because here I am working with all my chronically ill patients being like, let's work on pacing, being more kind and compassionate to yourself. Would you tell a friend the same thing? And then I'm sitting here being like, add more things to calendar, take on more responsibilities. Let's do another
presentation. All of them.
another project. And I'm like, so I am working on it. It is a work in progress.
Yeah, for sure. I have had to be really careful because I used Instagram and my experience because I was early in the pandemic and I did get early access to some things. I used it as a really wholesome way to dissociate from my own experience because I could pour into other people
Yeah.
with help and then also feel really good because I was useful and I was having a wonderful time. Just
Yeah.
I'm helping. And then when I realized that I was like really burning myself out doing that, I went through this huge period of feeling so much guilt and shame for not keeping up with doing it. And I can't imagine if it was my livelihood. And that was my question was like, oof, how do you take care of your own nervous system that way? Because I personally now, I joke when I say it, but it's true. I feel allergic to my own emotions and
Yeah.
stress. I
Yep.
crash so hard and I have the cognitive flares and crashes that come with intense emotionality floor me. And I'm just really curious how you approach that.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's an ongoing thing that I'm still figuring it out. I think part of it is how I schedule things. Like I
Mhm.
know I can't do 4 clients back to back. That's too
Yeah.
much for me. By the I need to eat, I need to just take a break and not do it. Ideally, not seeing more than 4 in one day would be great. I can do 5. I only see clients 4 days a week now. I would love to get to the point where that can be 3 days, but last
Yeah.
year I was doing 5, so we're already getting there. I need to be really intentional about because I feel like for so many people the impulse is like, well, I just had a long exhausting day. I'm going to sit on the couch and doom scroll and that's like all I have it in me for. I
Yeah.
need to like just lay on the floor and like shake, like put my legs up in the air and like shake like I'm like a dying bug or something. And it sounds goofy but it really does help. Caution for people listening, like if you have mast cell stuff that comes with like vibration or whatever, this might not be for you.
I did not know about that until I started looking at getting a vibration plate because it impacted my
Mhm.
nervous system. I mean, not my lymphatic system. And I was like, oh no, that's going to wake all my masties up and make me
Yeah.
feel really bad.
But it helps for me to just discharge it because I find if I don't, then I'm just like trembling under the desk. And so I literally need to like shake it out, and that helps me. I have blankets on my lap. I have like, fidgets and stuff. I need to be moving. I wear sweatpants every single day to every session, just to have like the comfort sensory stuff is really helpful, like
Yeah.
making sure I go outside multiple times a day. I'm super lucky that where I live is like very rural, and so I can just step outside and like mostly see trees and grass and stuff, and that is really regulating for me. But yeah, I'm still I'm still figuring it out. I think part of it too is
Yeah.
like finding, at least as a therapist, like the type of clients that I feel like I work best with and are most energizing. Like I stopped seeing couples because I was like, this is not my jam.
Oh,
And like shout out to people who do that work. Like my friend Erin loves couples and like that is fantastic. That is super dysregulating to me of like hearing two people like just fighting with each
arguing.
other. And I'm like, I did enough of
Yeah.
that in my childhood. I'm good. So I
Yeah.
think part of it too is like, okay, what works for me? Like what feels nourishing to me? Like not every session is like, no, so uplifting. I feel great. Like, yeah, sometimes it's freaking hard. Sometimes you're sitting with people through like really hard stuff, but
Yeah.
it does feel like extremely meaningful to me. And especially working with a lot of my chronically ill folks of like when I can just be like, I get it. Like that makes sense that you're feeling that way. Or
Yeah.
like, yeah, like when you cancel, I'm not going to be like, ooh, you're seeming resistant. Are you really ready for therapy right now? I'm like, no, you're having a flare and that's fine.
Yes.
I just think being able to see the impact of other people to like be believed and seen and heard and affirmed and
Hmm.
to like have someone else like be a regulated nervous system to sit with
Oh,
them. Like
yeah.
I've seen just how impactful that is. And that makes it all worth it to me.
It's such meaningful work. It's so important. And I had a similar experience where I found a therapist. She was so cool. We were really vibing. It was awesome. She's like super witchy. We're talking about herbs and doing all kinds of stuff. And we were both like, you meet someone and you're like, we're really excited to work together. I can tell this is going to be great. And then in the first 15 minutes of the first real session, she asked me if I thought that it would be good for me to push myself a little bit and try to build more of a circle locally of people in person. And I was like, yeah, that would be great if it felt safe. And if there were people who actually like would make the effort for me. But at that point, I didn't have that. I do have local, like long hauler friends now. And it is a huge relief to be around someone who gets it and you don't have to explain it and you don't have to hide it and mask with it. It's so important. But I have a really long history of like just sticking with doctors and professionals because they're the authority and I'm just a baby. So, but I did end up saying like, this isn't gonna work like I thought it was. The therapist I have now actually used to work with her and then started his own business. But anyway, is just, I don't even know how to explain how safe I feel because he doesn't have long COVID, but he has experience with chronic illnesses. He has POTS and he understands all of that. And again, like I had a fever this week and I'm not going to put him at risk. And he knows I'm not going to put him at risk. And he was just like, rest and to tell me when you'd like to schedule. And that was it. And I was like, just that exhale of, okay, I don't have to push the apologies. I don't feel like I have let you down. I don't feel like I'm in trouble. There's nothing about that dynamic that triggers any of that stuff in me at all. I just feel like he actually wants me to rest and then come in. And even said, I don't know that our session is going to be good for you to do with a fever. And I have a TBI and we're doing EMDR and he uses a princess wand for me instead of lights because we don't want to upset my brain too much with that. And before we worked up to that, we did a light brush on my hands. So we didn't even use my eyes at first. And just that intentionality and thought of like, I know this is going to hurt your brain if we start hardcore with lights, and a real plan for it is like the best feeling. And that actually leads me to a question that I think would be interesting to hear from your point of view is what should people look for if they're seeking a therapist and they want to be able to ask the right questions to find out if that person does understand sort of like chronic illness and disability? I'd like to hear what you think. A lot of people just have like experience. I have experience in this area, or I have myself this chronic illness, but I'm nervous to ask too many questions because I don't want to appear difficult because I have to be the valedictorian of therapy.
Well, there's no grades in therapy, so you can't get an A, but you also can't get
the favorite.
Like, do you like me the best?
That's why I'm in therapy.
Fair enough. I have a lot of clients that have similar experiences, so you're not alone there. Yeah, I think like finding therapists that say like on their website or their profiles or whatever that they work with chronic illness can be really helpful. And like, look, I'm a big proponent of like, you should be able to ask a prospective therapist the questions that are important to you. And if they get like weird about it or like they're like, why would you want to know that or whatever? Cool. Great information. That's not the person for you. I'm a big fan of meeting with a bunch of different people. And I say that to basically everyone I do a consultation with of like, hey, I want you to find the best fit, whether that's with me or that's with someone else. Like, ask me any question you want. There might be some things that I might not give you the answer necessarily. I feel like for me, I'm like pretty open. Like if people ask me certain things, I'm like, sure, I'll tell you, like whatever. No one's asked me something like super invasive, but I've had people ask like, you know, hey, I come from this like particular religious background and I'm really trying to move away from that. Are you part of that religious background? And I'm like, oh, I'm not. And like, oh, okay, cool. Great. That's fine. Like people have asked me about my political beliefs around certain topics, and I'm happy to
Mhm.
share with them because I'd want them to feel comfortable. And
Yep.
so, asking a prospective therapist, like, what do you know about long COVID or POTS or MECFS or like whatever your thing is? Have you worked with clients like this before? How
Yeah.
do you work differently with clients like me? I think it's really important to know because I think the average therapist doesn't know anything about chronic illness unless they themselves have a chronic illness, maybe if they like have a loved one with it, but
Mhm.
that doesn't mean that they're equipped to deal with it. Like
Right.
in the story that you shared of like, what do you think it would be good to just like push yourself more? If you're working with a client that just has depression, then what we call opposite action is going to be great. So if your depression is like, just stay in bed, don't go out, don't do anything, that's when you go for a walk because that's going to make you feel better, even though it feels like the opposite of what you want to do.
Yeah.
If a client has MECFS, what, could you just push yourself is not is not the correct answer. And
No.
so if therapists don't understand that distinction, it is possible that they might inadvertently do more harm, or you might leave feeling like I'm not doing what I'm quote unquote supposed to do, or they might think like, well, this client's resistant because they're not doing the things that I'm suggesting or recommending or whatever. And so I think that is really hard. And that's one of the things I'm excited about of this upcoming presentation we're doing with the Chicago school is like, we're really expanding our like, how do you work specifically with these diagnoses? How do you make accommodations for people? How do you know like how these people are going to show up and what they might need and how that might look different from just the average client? Because in grad school, like you didn't get any training or learning about this stuff, like period, in space, and there's not a lot out there either. Um,
No.
so it is a lot of like you kind of have to figure it out. But I think, especially with MECFS, like it really, really makes sense to find a therapist who is familiar with it, or at the very minimum, saying, you know what, I maybe don't know too much about that, but I'm open to learning. Let me go do some research. And it's not on you as the client to educate
Yes.
the therapist about these issues. That's not what you need to be using your session time for.
Right. I don't think I should be paying to teach you about my stuff. That's a really good point. Maybe that all ties into this whole I don't want to say it's setting a boundary, but it is upholding your own agency and having some authority for yourself. And that feels icky
Hmm.
sometimes. It's really difficult. And another thing that I've caught myself doing throughout all of this, because there have been so many people who I thought would stick around who didn't, is kind of accepting crumbs of effort from people as proof that I'm still cared for when I don't want to let go of what's actually not a very healthy relationship. And I can see myself doing that with providers that I have worked with as well,
Yeah.
just to get something.
Yeah. I've definitely heard that from folks too, of like, my therapist is really great on all these other issues, but when it comes to masking or COVID consciousness or long COVID or whatever, I feel like they don't really get it. And so I kind of have to compartmentalize, or like, I don't really talk about those things.
But doesn't that make it I'm just thinking about like teaching even in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? The whole basis of being able to learn or grow is safety.
Yeah.
And if you're having to compartmentalize the fact that the person who you've gone to for help is actually not making you feel safe, how do you fully grow from that experience? That's so hard.
I totally agree. And when I say this, I'm not saying you should compartmentalize with your
No,
therapist.
no. I know. I
Just to
know.
be
It's just
But you're right. And I think like all the research we know about therapy is it's less about what modality you're using. Is it EMDR? Is it IFS? Is it
yeah.
CBT? Whatever. And it's the most important part is the relationship
Yeah.
between the client and the therapist. And so it's not just like, well, whatever, like this person's available, so I guess I'll just see them, but like I don't really feel connected and they don't get me.
Mm.
Therapy's not really going to help you if those are the circumstances that you're in.
Yeah.
Which I understand how hard it is of like, therapy is not accessible in a lot of ways. Like it makes it so hard. Like if you need someone who takes your insurance or your specific insurance or and also, you know, works on these specific issues or whatever, like the more criteria you have, the harder and harder it is to find someone. And that's a systemic problem. That's not anyone's individual failure. And I say this as a therapist who does not take insurance. And a big part of that is because I do not have the capacity to deal with insurance because I already spend many hours a week just trying to get my own insurance, to get my own medical stuff covered. I can't spend more hours calling on behalf of clients to say, hey, can I get paid for this work that I've already done?
Yeah.
So there are so many barriers. And so I don't want to just be like, just find a therapist who's like on the same page with you with all these things because it's so hard. I have been thinking about looking for a new therapist and I feel super overwhelmed by it. And I'm a therapist. I'm like, this is hard. I don't like this. Why isn't it easier?
Yeah.
But if you're on Psychology Today or whatever, looking up therapists who specialize in chronic illness can be helpful. Or like the COVID Conscious Therapist Directory, which I know there are some issues with that as well. But like, I feel like it's maybe a better place to start than just looking at like,
it's a definite
available closest to me in my area and has openings this week or whatever.
Yeah. And therapy itself, coming back to like feeling allergic to your emotions and stuff, you might think, I want to do this every week. I'm going to meet with them and that's great. I'm doing all of the things and I'm going to feel better. And then you have one session and you're like, holy shit, I'm knocked out for 3 days. I don't know if I can do this weekly. So it really is just trying to find that balance for yourself. And it's so hard when you're not trained to balance anything except everybody else's stuff.
It is so hard. And I really try to be accommodating to clients if they're like, hey, this is too much for me to meet every week, whether that's like a financial barrier or like a nervous system barrier of just like, I crash or whatever. I'm like, that's fine. Like, let's do every other week. Or like I had a client who was sick the other week and they're like, I'm so sorry. You know, I don't think I can reschedule for this week. And I'm like, no apologies necessary. Like, please just rest and like, feel free to reach out whenever you're ready. Like, you don't need to feel bad. Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, my priority is that you take care of yourself and that you get to a point where you feel well enough that this is going to be a good experience for you and not just like, I have to check this box or whatever. Like, this is supposed to be for you, for your healing. Like, I have some folks who like you described, like feel like they're allergic to their emotions or their tears or whatever. And there will be times when I'll check in. I'm like, hey, I can see you're getting really emotional. And like, I can see, you know, the redness is kind of flaring up on your skin or whatever. Like, do we need to take a step back from this topic? Is this feeling too much for you?
Yeah.
I'm not going to be like, we got to keep going further. Come on. Like, that's not right for everyone.
No, it's not. And thank you for doing that. It's so important because I get so caught up in what I'm talking about and what I'm doing in a session that I won't always take that moment to stop and think. And I think that is a theme throughout my whole experience with this is being able to pause and just say, where am I right now? And what am I capable of doing for the next period of time? And I was speaking with someone else who called that self-efficacy and really listening to that. The place we started with it was actually going to pee when you need to pee because classic ADHD is like, I got to finish this task before I go pee. And I'm really trying to like feel in my body that my bladder's full and it's time and teach it that I will pay attention. And I feel like just those, it sounds so like pre-COVID Beth would be like, what? Why don't you just go pee? Why do you need to teach anything to your nervous system about this? But it's those little baby steps that help me pull myself into the moment. And I do should myself about it a lot because I have been through so much. I should be taking better care of myself. I should be doing that, but it's just life. Yeah. I have so many other responsibilities.
I hear you. And I'm so glad that you mentioned this because this really ties into something that I was wanting to talk about too of like the overlap of like neurodivergence and chronic illness and how tricky that can be when I feel like we're already often disconnected from our internal experience, either because we've like trained away having to listen to it because we've been like gaslit or dismissed from people in our lives. That's not too hot. You don't feel that way. You're fine, whatever it is. And then also just like the interoceptive difficulty of like, okay, I feel something in my body, but what is it? And how do I address it? What is going to help? I'm not sure. And, alexithymia, difficulty like naming and identifying emotions. You're like, I just know I feel weird and bad. But
Yeah.
why? And what's going to help? I feel like that makes it especially difficult. And even just like having ADHD and being like, I was crying yesterday and I was like, I'm going to have to eat every day forever.
I'm going to have to think about what to eat every day forever and then make it.
Choices and I'm overwhelmed and how do I, it's too hard. All of those things of like, okay, even identifying that I'm hungry, being able to choose a thing that I want, having the like physical ability to consume it without it making me sick or like without feeling nauseous or whatever, with whatever like health stuff I have going on. That's so many things.
Oh my
To
gosh.
even just like get your basic baseline bodily needs met is so freaking hard. And I feel like that's something I've really been working on in the last few years, is to be able to tune into those cues that you were mentioning of like, okay, I have to pee and that means this or whatever. For years, it sounds so goofy. I didn't know what it felt like to need to burp until I was like 23. I would think I was going to have a panic attack. I'd be like, something feels wrong. I'm going to throw up. This is horrible. I would freak out. And it literally at one point I was like, oh, because my stomach's all messed up because of long COVID stuff, I need to like poke and prod a little bit. And then I
Oh my
burp.
gosh.
Oh, I feel fine now. But like, it took me my whole life up until that point to even know that's what that was. It
Okay,
didn't come naturally to me.
Olivia, in a minute, I'm going to ask you to define interoception because I just want to make sure everybody knows what that is. But I have to tell you, I've been so disconnected from my own nervous system my whole life. I'm 49, lots of childhood trauma. Yesterday, I saw a video of a woman talking about something, an experience that she had in childhood, and I knew what she was going to talk about next. Just like it just all lined up, and it's something that I experienced as a kid. And I texted my husband and I said, I didn't know that if you experience an emotion, you can have a physical symptom reaction to it, because I got angry and felt disgust, and
Yeah.
then that made me nauseous
Yeah.
because I have spent so long so disconnected from feeling what's actually happening in my body, and it's really a horrible thing that I felt this about, like truly vile, horrible life thing. But I got so excited because I was like, I feel disgusted and angry.
Yeah.
I had a physical sign of it and was able to recognize it and connect it. That's a really big deal. So for you to say that, you didn't really understand what that feeling of a burp was, I get it, because there's so many layers again. It's just like there's neurodivergence that's basically emotionally beaten out of you because you can't take up space and you can't be a burden and you can't be different and you can't take up time. And that's wild, but I get it. And can you just explain interoception real quick to make sure everybody knows what that is?
Yeah. It's so funny because I get so wrapped up in like, I'm like, I know all these things and therefore everyone knows. And I'm like, wait, I need to slow down.
I think a lot of people probably do, but I always like to make sure.
Yeah, for sure. Interoception is like being able to notice those internal body cues and like connect them to a thing of like, am I hungry? Do I have to pee? Am I tired? Do I need to drink water? All that kind of stuff. For a lot of autistic and ADHD folks in particular, I feel like we kind of notice those cues when it's like 9 out of 10 urgency. Whereas from my understanding, I think a lot of neurotypical people, they'll kind of have these like intermediary cues of like, I'm getting a little bit hungry. It kind of feels like this in my body. Should probably eat soon, as opposed to like, I feel fine. Now I'm hangry.
I'm
like
angry and I'm going to pass out.
Yes, we go from like 0 to 100 real quick, I feel like, with a lot of those things.
Okay.
And I feel like that makes it difficult. And then I'm also kind of holding this like, I feel like a lot of us, we are simultaneously dissociated and disconnected from our experiences and also hyper aware of everything.
What is that? It's exhausting. That's what it is.
It's exhausting. It's really, really hard. And I feel like I didn't even have language for that until learning about autism and ADHD like a couple years ago. And so I just attributed all my experiences. I was like, I'm just hella anxious, I guess, all the time, forever. And I'm just like afraid to like be in the world. I don't know. Like, and now I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I actually understand what's going on. It's not that I'm anxious, it's that my brain is hyperactive because I have ADHD. And so my brain is all of these things all the time and it almost never shuts off.
Yeah.
And that's exhausting in and of itself because our brain uses a huge amount of energy just to do its thing. Even if we're laying there in silence with our eyes closed, we're still
Oh.
expending a lot of energy.
Yeah, because I'm planning my next conversation
Mm-hmm.
or what I've got to do. Yeah. And we use more glucose, don't we? I think we use more sugar to fuel all of that. And
That's
I
interesting. I'm
think
not sure.
I've read that somewhere.
Okay.
I might be wrong. I'll fact check that. But that's one of the other themes that keeps coming up is the energy and the spoons that go into just the basics of living, and then add the trauma and the neurodivergence and the state of the world and your family and your kids and your job and your life and the amount of time and energy. Just you even talking about not taking insurance because you've got to keep up with your own insurance for your own health stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like the expense of being chronically ill and disabled monetarily, but energetically cannot be explained to someone who doesn't have to live it. And I don't want anyone to be sick, but I
Mm-hmm.
sure would like to be able to have like a theme, right? Where you can use VR and be me for part of a day and just tell me you're not fucking exhausted.
Yeah. And I feel like, especially with dynamic disability, which I think autism and ADHD fall into that, and same with a lot of long COVID stuff too, is that, like you said earlier, like, I might be fine for now, and then later I have a huge crash, and then maybe I'm fine again later, and it's hard to
Yeah.
predict what the symptoms are going to be. I feel like it makes it hard for other people to understand our experience. Like when I've recently been trying to explain executive functioning to my mom and to my stepdad, and I'm like, yeah, I really struggle with executive functioning. And they're like, I don't understand, Olivia, because like you've built this whole business and you like do all of this stuff for work and like you're so capable in these ways. And I'm like, well, yeah, like it's in limited supply and I use 99% of it to do work. And so then when it comes to after, I'm like, brain empty, no thought. I don't know
Yeah.
what to make for dinner unless I've already planned it out beforehand with my
Right.
partner and all that stuff. And so that makes it difficult too. And when you've kind of been this like push through
Mm-hmm.
for so many years, that becomes your default. And I feel like I hate all this stuff of like, all of these health issues are like connected to trauma and chronic stress and stuff. And I'm like, I believe that's
Yeah.
true. But also a lot of it gives this like, it's your fault kind of vibe.
Oh.
Or when I'm in a flare and I'm like Googling symptoms of like, what is this? Could this be connected to this thing I have? Or is this something different or whatever? And their
Mm-hmm.
advice is reduce stress. Well, I wasn't stressed until I had all these weird health problems come up. And now I'm stressed because I don't know what this is or how to fix it.
Yeah.
Feeling fine before.
Right. Right. But thanks. I'll work on that.
Yeah, I'm like,
I'm fine now. It's great.
No, I'll just choose to be happy instead.
Yeah, absolutely. I also wanted to mention with the interoception, proprioception, which I have a really hard time saying, but that's another big deal for us, I think, as well, isn't it? So if you are, I don't know, a neurodivergent person who's also bendy, and you're like, I spent years disparaging myself saying, I don't know how big my hips are. That's why I'm so like giving myself a hard time about my body. No, I just don't know where I am in space.
Yep.
A lot of the time. And I don't know where I am relative to the counter corner.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm too busy using all of my energy to try to make sure that I'm going to do the next thing and not necessarily understanding where I am in relation to something else. And that's why I'm covered in those bruises.
Yeah. Definitely.
Not because I'm doing anything wrong and I'm needing to be mean to my body about it. It's being a human it's a wild experience.
Yeah. And I feel like it's so hard when we don't have the language to describe these things, we end up just disparaging ourselves.
I'm so good at it though. And that's really hard because, as I said before, I need to be the best at something. And I'm really good at being mean to myself. Really, really good.
I feel that too. I feel like giving myself this language has really helped a lot with that for me, because I'm like, okay, like, it's not that I'm clumsy, it's that I have a hard time with proprioception of knowing where my body is in space. Like, it's not that I'm lazy, it's that I have executive functioning difficulties. And that's why it's really hard to like organize all my papers that I've just like shoved into this one clump of something.
I got a lot of piles.
And didn't address for a long time. And yeah, I feel like with all of this too, of like, I really struggle with phone calls. I always have. Like, as a kid, my dad would be like, well, if you want to see your friend for a play date, like, you have to call their house. And I'd be like, cool, I'll just be alone. I don't want to do that. But then now it's like, well, I have to make many, many phone calls a week because I'm playing phone tag with my specialist to try and schedule an appointment. I'm playing phone tag with insurance to make sure that my treatments are going to be covered. Yep. Like, all of this kind of stuff that it feels extremely hard for me and takes a ton of energy. And it's hard when it feels like it's never like checked off. It's never like, I've had on my to-do list for 3 weeks, scheduled GI follow-up. I've called them like 4 or 5 times at different times on different days, hoping maybe they'll pick up. One of the things about working with clients is that magically they know when I'm in session and they're like, that's when I'll call. So I'm sitting with a client like, damn it, click decline, because that's when they call me back. And so it's just always all these things to juggle. And like we're saying, it's like when it's already hard to just like make yourself eat food on a regular basis and like go to sleep and, you know, get your laundry done and whatnot. And then you have work, you have all these other things, and then you have medical appointments, and you're like, all right, well, I know that on my infusion day, like, I can't do anything else. I can't work. I can't schedule stuff. I can't see friends, whatever. Like, it just takes up so much more time and space. And like you said earlier, yeah, it would be so nice to go out and have a community of in-person friends, but like, I don't have the capacity to do that right now. And like, there's grief in that too. And back to identity of, well, how do I fit in with other people in the world? And who am I? Like, this stuff is a lot. It's all deeply interconnected, and my brain turns on it very, very often.
Mine too. But I'm grateful to have the people in my life that I can have conversations with like this about it, because it does help just to know that you're not the only one spinning out.
Yeah. Totally. I'm like, all right, it's not just me. It's not just me.
Yeah, no, it is not. It is not. I'm very aware of time. Are you good to move into the 3 questions I like to ask everybody at the end?
Let's do it.
Fantastic. The first one this time around is, what do you wish the general public knew more about long COVID, or knew better about long COVID? Or at all knew?
That it exists. Is that too basic? No. I feel like that it exists, and that you're more susceptible to it than you realize. I think I said in one of my groups last week that before I had my infection, I didn't realize that I was secretly like multiple high-risk factors in a trench coat. And there are all these things that, you know, autism, ADHD, like previous like mood disorders, depression, bipolar, like, you know, if you've, you know, been in psychiatric help for mental health issues, those all drastically increase your risk of long COVID.
Yeah.
So all these things that you're like, well, I don't smoke and, you know, whatever, like, I'm not super old or whatever. Like, okay, you know, long COVID doesn't care.
Nope.
You might be more susceptible than you realize, and, you know, increased infections are going to potentially increase your risk. And so just because you were fine the first, second, third, fourth, or fifth time, that's not a guarantee.
No. It would be good if that messaging got out beyond our circle. Yeah.
Yeah.
The second one is my favorite, and that I will never change. And that is, if your long COVID experience, if you had a theme song for it, what would it be?
I have been thinking so much about this question, and I feel like I have like come up so short, because I'm like, I don't know. I feel the thing that comes to mind, it feels most authentic for me right now, and like maybe this is super goofy, but I've been listening to the like spa waiting room playlist or whatever.
That so tracks.
Because there are times when, especially when I'm talking all day with people for work, I don't want to then hear more things afterwards. And so like even like music or podcasts sometimes just the sensory, it's just too
Same.
much. And but I don't want it to be silent because that feels like not enough stimulation.
Yeah.
And so
But
just
no
having,
lyrics.
yeah, just having the like peaceful,
Beep, beep,
you
beep,
know,
beep.
sound bowl or
Yeah.
whatever those things are, like I feel like that has been really helpful for me. And I feel like, that's not like, ooh, a song by this artist on this
Oh,
album.
I think that is such a good reference point for this experience that it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. The third one, because I am focusing on community a lot this time around, is there any particular person you want to give a shout out, or any particular community that's showed up for you in a certain way, or even what you've been doing with your groups? Like, how has support showed up for you, and how's it been the most meaningful?
Yeah, definitely my partner, and like all the ways that he shows up for me and for us in our household when my capacity is lower, and that he just like takes all of it on, and like reassures me that I'm not too much and that he's always there for me. And I feel like I've really, really lucked out with him. He's an incredible person. And then my mom as well, just her being able to like call insurance stuff for me sometimes. There have been
Oh,
times where she spent hours of her week on the phone just trying to get my stuff covered. And like I have
yeah.
her as a whatever, a caretaker, or, she's got my permission to like speak on my behalf with the insurance. And I know that's not something that everyone has. And I
Yeah.
truly think I would be so fucked if I didn't have her support, and I would have to work way less and make way less money
Yeah.
because I would have to spend so much more time and energy just dealing
It's a
with it.
job.
Bullshit. It literally is. It's like a unpaid part-time job
Mhm.
that you hate and that you never get to quit, apparently, because my insurance, like, they approved me for these infusions. They were really, really helping me. And then after 2 times, they were like, nope. And I was like,
Oh,
I'm
that's my worst fear.
and my mom was so great. Like, she got in and she channeled her inner speak to the manager energy. And she was like, nope, you better approve this. Like, my daughter needs this. And she really got in there. And so I'm super grateful for her helping me with those things. And yeah, even just like my groups, like, yeah, it's group therapy and I'm the facilitator, but there are times when I'll like share about myself occasionally, or, if it fits in with what the discussion is, or what people are needing. And just like being able to hear at the end. I've had so many people that have returned over and over again. I think I've done 17 or 18 of these groups in the past 2
Wow.
years. And I have a couple of people that have been in every single iteration that I've
I love
done.
that.
And it's been so wonderful. I'm like, I see you guys more than I see most other people in my life.
But you've
um,
made a space where they feel safe and seen and cared for, and that's
yeah.
beautiful. That's great.
And to be able to get the comments at the end of like, this has been such a meaningful experience for me. Like, these groups keep getting better and better. Like, and being able to see other people make community because of the group that I've started, of
Yeah.
like, they send me pictures like, I met up with so and so and we like went on this road trip, or like they took me to do this thing when I like needed help or whatever. I'm like, that feels amazing. I'm like, that was because of me. It's
Yeah.
hard for me to be like, I did a thing, but like, I did that. Like, those people
Yeah.
might not have ever connected if it weren't for me in this space that I've created. And so it feels like I'm facilitating community for other people,
Mhm.
even if I don't get to be part of it in the same way, because I'm like, I can't be your friend after because this is group therapy and, I'm your group therapist and whatnot. But just to be able to see that it has been meaningful for other people has been so
Yeah.
incredibly meaningful for me.
I get it. It's beautiful. Thanks for doing that. That's really cool. I'm really curious about the webinar that you're going to do for what therapists need to know about COVID.
Mm-hmm.
If there are other therapists listening who are interested in doing that, how do they find out more?
That is a great question. Let me pull up. My stuff is so scattered. Ooh, I know where to find it. So we changed the title this time because what we found was that when you put XYZ COVID-19, that most people don't want to sign up.
Surprise.
Surprise. Yeah. And it was mostly like therapists that were already like pretty aware of these things. And they were
Yeah.
like, this is great. Thanks for doing this. And I'm like, cool. I appreciate you coming. And also I feel like maybe this wasn't reaching the audience that we wanted it to. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, the presentation that we're doing next month. So it's with me, Erin Batali, and Kate McNulty. It's called Beyond Fatigue and Brain Fog, Help for Today's Cognitive and Health Issues. And we're talking about working with all of those kind of things in therapy. It's going to be through the Chicago School of Psychology. It's going to be on April 17th. It's at like 9 a.m. Pacific, I want to say. I think you should be able to sign up now on their website. I can send you a link too if you want to put it in like the show
that'd be
notes.
great.
That would be helpful. Yeah, we're still in progress of like getting all that together. There's going to be like some overlapping slides and information from our previous iterations, but also a lot of new stuff as well that I'm really excited about, of like clinical work, scope of practice, recommendations, working with these kind of issues. We'll have some case examples, all of that kind of stuff, resources at the end. So I'm really excited about that. I hope it'll get more traction. At this point, we were kind of like, all right, the cat's out of the bag. Everyone's gotten COVID. And we're seeing these issues show up in therapy. So now that it's here, how are we addressing it, rather than like, we need to prevent this? Like, prevention's still important. I'm a big advocate as well. And also, we
practicalities.
I don't say we want to trick people into saying have to learn about it, but we're like, all right, maybe if we like kind of broaden the scope a little bit and make it more about like chronic illness in general, that would maybe like attract more people potentially. So
it's smart.
It's live next month. I think there's also, it should be recorded, and that you can sign up and do the like at home study. It should be approved for like all kinds of continuing education credits for a bunch of licensed types. So psychologist, MFT, all that good stuff. So that should be there, and I can share the link with you as well.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. And then your website is oliviabelknaptherapy.com.
Yes.
Look at me.
Yeah, you got it. You can find me on Instagram, Olivia Belknap Therapy as well. Yeah, that's where a lot of my stuff is. I feel like I have so many projects in the works that I'm like wanting to work on, and also like limited energy and focus to be able to like do all the things. But I'm also, I don't know if I'm allowed to say it. I think I am. We're working on a like COVID conscious therapist book. I'm one of like therapists, I think, that are working. I'm writing the chapter about like working with groups and doing groups. So that is like in the works as well. We're hoping to have like a conference based around that at some point in the future. So there's a lot of cool stuff happening. But yeah, I appreciate like everyone who has like engaged with my work and stuff like that. Like you, I did not set out to be a content creator, and it has like been really weird to feel like I'm this like micro influencer in some way. Is like not something that I ever thought I would be able to say about myself. But here we are. It's cool to see that it's had a positive impact on people. And at the end of the day, that's what feels most meaningful to me.
Me too. I keep saying I just can't shut up. And I have a trauma response of oversharing. So here I am.
Let's start a podcast.
Thanks for letting me talk about the shitty things that have happened and letting other people talk about their shitty things. That's the whole thing. And, giving people something to look forward to where they're not talked at. Yeah. Feel like they're part of it. And that's all I wanted. I really appreciate you taking the time. I really appreciate the work that you do. It is so needed. And the fact that you're working with other people to try to help spread that information and help in other ways is just invaluable. So thank you so much for doing it. Thank you for using your spoons to do it. Thank you for being patient with me today because I was running late. And thank you for taking the time. So nice to meet you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so great. I feel so much more regulated now that we've like gotten to the end, and like being able to connect with each other in this way has been really awesome. And so I just really appreciate you having me on.
Thank you so much. These conversations, like, they're very emotional for me, and I do find them tiring, but I also get there are few things I do on a regular basis that actually energize me, and these definitely do. So
yeah. You deserve that.
Thank you. I kind of feel like I'm feeding off everybody, but for good. Thank you for tuning in to A Friend for the Long Haul. I want to remind listeners that while our conversations may touch on medical topics, I'm not a medical professional, and neither are most of our guests. The content provided here is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Any advice or information shared should not be considered a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult with a qualified healthcare provider regarding any medical concerns or conditions. Additionally, I'm committed to transparency in advertising. Any advertisements or sponsored content featured in these episodes will be clearly disclosed as such. Lastly, I acknowledge that the recording of this podcast takes place on the traditional lands of the Arapaho, the Cheyenne,
the Sioux, and the Ute peoples. Again, thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more episodes of A Friend for the Long Haul.